Hi there, this is Jennifer with Brome Fields, and today I'm going to show you how I have a pullover in the works, and I just want to show you a video tutorial on how I go from knitting in the round, and then I go to knitting flat, but I put some of my stitches on a scrap piece of yarn. So I'm going to knit half of my stitches. I'm just using this as an example because it goes a lot quicker. All right, so those are half of my stitches. And now I'm going to put the other half on a scrap piece of yarn. I just fold that in half and I pinch it and just push it through the needle. And my trick, I do have my stitch marker over here. And one of the things I love about interchangeable needles is that they come apart and it makes taking stitches off of the needle so much easier. So I put that in there, and you have to keep pressure, otherwise it will just come right apart. So there's my stitch marker. I push it through. I take that off so it all stays, all my other stitches stay on, and I pull this through. And whenever you have a lot of stitches, you have to do that a couple times to get them all on there. But that's it. I love that little trick on putting the stitches on a scrap piece of yarn. And that was with an interchangeable needle. And now I can just put my needle back on and continue working flat. And I want to pull that so it doesn't fall off. All right, so now I'm working the inside of my yarn. So if I continue in pattern, I'm going to assume that the pattern is all knit stitches on the outside, but this needs to be a purl because this is the inside of my work. So I'm going to purl all these stitches. And I will continue. I mean, of course, it'll be whatever pattern you are following. But let's say, for example, that this is knitted from the bottom up, and I started in the round, and now I've knitted to where I'm going to add a sleeve, and I need to go to knit flat. And this is a tiny little thing, so I'm not even sure this is big enough to be a baby sweater. So then this is now the front of the work. So I'm going to knit these stitches. Oops, I'm just going to slip that one right off. And then just continue working in pattern until you've reached your desired or required length. So then you'll have this gap here. So now I'm going to show you how to pick these stitches back up. But I think I'll take these off of this needle because I need this needle back. So I'll show you my trick again. So I'm going to take my interchangeable needle off. And this is also kind of handy because if you're not quite sure how you want to kind of try it on for size before you go ahead and bind off all your stitches, which I find that I am constantly trying stuff on before I make my final decisions. All right, just pull this through. I don't want it to fall off. All right, so then you're going to put these stitches back on your needle. So this is the back side. So put my needle back on. I'm using Haya knitting needles, interchangeable needles, and I've had these things it's got to be at least 6 years now, maybe longer. And I haven't had to replace it. Okay, so I get my yarn to where it's just about to slip off, and I take them off. I mean, they're all on my scrap piece of yarn just as if they were on my needle, so I know they're not twisted. So I just take a few off, and then I pull that out. You can do them one at a time, and then I also like to pull it so I keep that piece of yarn short, and then I just keep slipping them off. It's not as easy putting them back on the needle as it was taking them off. However, I do kind of do it methodically because I want them to be on nicely. And I try not to pull too much on them so they don't make the row before too tight. All right, so now I have all those stitches back on, and I have no yarn, you notice. So I would have to go with, you would want a scrap piece of yarn. I mean, not scrap. You would cut this yarn. However, my needles are not in my bag. So, and then that first row before we put it on a scrap piece of yarn, we knitted. So we're going to go back to, and this is still the front of our work, and we want it to be all knit stitches. And then whenever we flip it over, we're going to do all purl stitches. To work the inside of our work. So this is a really good example for new knitters to show them knitting in the round versus knitting flat. So knitting in the round, I'm always knitting the outside of my work, but knitting flat, I go back and forth from knitting the inside to the outside. So now I'm working the inside of my shirt, which are all purl stitches. Leave somewhat of a long tail so that you can reinforce this, which in this case will be like an armpit. And you really want that to be good and secure so it's not loose. So that is how you go from knitting in the round to knitting flat and bringing it into two separate pieces. So you have a front and a back, and then you just follow your pattern to create the top or the sleeves. But however, mine is going to be a pullover, and I'll show you that in another video. I'll leave the link below. And I hope that you guys found this to be helpful in whatever pattern you happen to be working on. And thank you so much for watching.